Beer Review video review. This week we have the Ramon Natural, and I say we because, well, I'm not alone. I've got Tom from Tom's Cigars here, from the Ed and Tom Show, here joining me for this week's long drawn out cigar review. So Tom, why don't you jump right on in? Tell us a little bit about the cigar. You got anything to drink with it? What's going on?
What's up? I'll start off with what I'm drinking. And as you can see, I'm drinking fine Florida tap water here, filtered. But the cigar, this guy, let me see what his name is, Andrew Roth from H.J. Bailey Company. I don't know if he contacted you, Walt, but I imagine he did. But he contacted me and sent me a couple boxes of cigars. The Maduro version of this cigar, as well as what we have now, the Natural or Connecticut. And I reviewed it in a written review, but I haven't done the video thing yet, so I don't know if you want to read off the particulars on the cigar as far as blend and all that.
Sure. I did the Maduro only. I've had a couple of the Naturals so far, and I'm hoping that this one's going to go a little bit better than the Maduro. Not that I thought the Maduro was bad, I just didn't find it all that enticing or all that exciting. It didn't really grab my attention, so I'm hoping that the Don Ramon Connecticut will do a little bit more in that department. As far as the makeup of the cigar, this is once again made by Camacho Cigars, just like the Maduro was. This has a Connecticut wrapper. I'm not quite sure whether it's USA grown or Ecuadorian grown. The binder is Honduran, as well as the filler. The length and grain gauge is 5x50, and the price point, I believe, is about $6.05 per single. Quite a bit higher than what I came up with for the Maduro review when I just took the box price and divided by 20 or 25, however many is in the box. So there we go with the particulars. Why don't you look over your cigar, Tom, and see if you can find any defects, and then we'll go from there.
Got a couple soft spots going here. It's not terrible. I'll hold it up here, you can see the band. It's a fairly nice looking cigar in my opinion, a nice triple cap, a little bumpy, but nothing horrible. I mean, pre-light draw, kind of has I don't know if my palate's off today or if I'm going to be wrong here or what, but it's kind of a sweet pre-light draw. Maybe a little woody. I don't know if your opinion will differ from mine.
I was a little behind. I just now clipped mine, and yeah, I agree. I think it's a little sweet, and it definitely has sort of a woody taste, sort of like a toothpick. It's sounds kind of strange, but it sort of tastes the same as a wooden toothpick does. I think the color looks good. I'm not seeing much color variation. The veins are fairly small, sort of rolling around in your hand. It doesn't have an overly lumpy or rough texture to it. All in all, I think it's a solid looking cigar. So I'm going to go ahead and light mine up and see how we go from there.
I'm going to light up as well. And I've already clipped with using the trustees iCar scissors, of course.
And I did the same.
I got that idea from you, so it's been about a year straight of using these things.
It's funny. Every once in a while, I get an email, and the question is, do you need to use the scissors to get a proper cut? And my response, of course, is always no. You don't need the scissors to get a proper cut. A year and a half, 2 years ago, I would have swore by the polio cutter because that's all I used. I just happened to found a preference to the scissors, and that's just what I use all the time. No rhyme or reason other than the fact that they're very convenient, and I like the results I get with them.
Exactly. That's pretty much my mentality as well, and you really can you have pretty much complete control. You wield complete control over your cut, so that kind of control is pretty. You get used to it, and you basically have a custom shaped and depth or whatever cut for each cigar you smoke, so that's why I use it.
And they're definitely a little intimidating at first, but you know, it doesn't take long to get used to them, and before long they're constantly in your pocket.
Couldn't agree more. And I'm lit up here. I'm taking a couple first couple puffs.
Yeah, I've got my cigar lit up. I'm getting tons and tons of smoke. The draw is pretty free, just loads of smoke. It's kind of overwhelming how much smoke is coming out of the cigar, and it's got a little bit of a bitterness to it. I'm still getting a little bit of the sweetness, but you know, the first couple of puffs aren't bad. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I got a little kind of a woody taste going, and a little sweet, and I'm gonna say this is a mild cigar so far, obviously, but let me take a puff here. Yeah, actually, I've taken a few puffs here, and that last one, it was pretty pleasant. It's basically a woody, sweet taste, if that sounds accurate, but so far it's decent for a mild cigar so far.
Yeah, I agree. It's fairly mild, and you know, the flavors are pleasant at this point. So why don't we take our first production break? We'll come back and take a look at the first side of the cigar and see how the Don Ramon Natural goes.
No one dare to speak of the terrible danger. The hideous ancient warnings fall to the void of night. It's risen up out of the blackness chaos. The last of the prophet's sister, a sickening monster sight. Through the stifling heat, underneath the
We're back from smoking our first third here of the Don Ramon, I guess technically called the Natural. And I'm going to show you the burn here. The burn has been great on my cigar. Physically, it's almost been a perfect cigar. The ash held on for maybe around an inch, and it literally fell off in my lap. But that's the only bad thing that's happened to me. Flavor-wise, you know, maybe I should throw it to you, Walt, and you can start the flavors. See if you can bail me out.
Well, before I get into that, I gotta agree with you. Absolutely, this cigar is burning very well. The ash is holding nice and strong. The burn line is pretty thin. It's been well within reason. You know, there's a little bit of variation, but for the most part, it's nice and straight. The ash is nice and compacted. I've got this appealing looking stacking appearance to the ash. It just looks great. You know, it's a very appealing, easy on the eyes. You know, it's a good looking cigar. As far as the flavors, I'm getting a couple. And most notably, that same sort of a woody flavor from earlier on. When I'm retrohaling, I'm getting a little bit of spice through the sinus. Not really any pepper, just more of a spicy component. There seems to be a little bit of sweetness to it, and maybe even a little bit of a nutty flavor. But all in all, the cigar seems to be pretty laid back and mild, and you know, I'm enjoying it so far.
It's very simple. I mean, it seems like a simple flavor profile. I'm getting those flavors as well, but I want to say almost like I don't know if I'm describing it correctly, but almost like a toasty kind of feel to it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's
Yeah, definitely, I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, and plus, you know, the flavors obviously you just described, and it's really easy. It's just an easy cigar, basically. It's not. So far, it hasn't been a wow cigar, but I don't think that's its purpose. So I'm going to take a little puff here and see if I can get. Yeah, maybe I'll get that woody component as well. But I don't know if I'm stretching. I don't think I'm getting... The first time I smoked this in the first third, I got kind of a buttery component, but I really don't know if I'm getting that this time around. So that's really about all I can say about in the flavor department.
Yeah, I think you're right on. It's pretty simple. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot going on. It seems like a pretty laid-back cigar. Definitely something I could see at this stage in the game. I definitely think I could see myself smoking this, early afternoon, late morning with a cup of coffee or something. So far it's been pretty pleasant.
Exactly. And I just sent a box of these out to somebody, so I hope they like them. They won my contest, but yeah, I really honestly can't complain, and I didn't complain on the other ones I smoked as well. They were just good. I mean, off topic, but I had a little bit better of an experience with the Maduro version than you did, but that could be a personal preference thing, or maybe you had, some bad sticks, I don't know, but, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know, I didn't think that was a particularly negative cigar. I just didn't find it very exciting. And, it's very easy to find yourself getting into a rut. You pick up the same cigars all the time that you enjoy, and you sort of start pigeonholing yourself into this comfort zone. And then you pick something up that's you don't feel as it is as good as what you've pigeonholed yourself into, and it's not very exciting, so it's easy to sort of look down on it, you know what I mean.
Well, I hang out with Ed, man. I know exactly what you mean. He basically had the same opinion. He's like, yeah, it is what it is. It's a decent cigar, but would I carry it? Man, probably not, just because I got limited floor space and blah blah blah, So yeah, I see your point. It was simple, and I think I remember that being in my review as well. It was what it was, not a wow stick. And it's kind of like, part of me wants to say I'm enjoying this one more than the Maduro. I don't know if you would. Well, actually, obviously you would agree with that.
Yeah, I think I'm enjoying this one more, definitely much more than the Maduro.
I'm trying to think, it almost has like a. I just took another puff. It almost had like a creamy sensation to it. I don't know if that is even part of your experience you're having, but that last puff just kind of turned creamy on me.
No, not yet. I think I'm a little bit behind you. It still seems to be, I don't know, it's like right down the middle. It's not quite creamy, not quite dry. That sort of a creamy texture might develop a little bit further into the cigar.
I really honestly can't think of anything else to say about the first third. Hopefully, I don't know if you can add any final thoughts.
Nope, so far I'm enjoying it. That's about all I have to add.
Cool. Well, if you want, we can dig into our second third, and who knows, maybe something will happen.
Yep, sounds like a plan.
Cool. All right. Well, Walt and I will be back. Stay tuned.
Saved.
Into our second third of the Don Ramon Natural, and as you can see, the burn line, the general burning characteristics of the cigar have been, and still are, fantastic. I've got a nice thin, even burn line. The ash is forming, it's holding nice and tight. It takes a little bit of effort to knock it off the cigar. It's a little bit over an inch as it is, and it takes a little bit of effort to knock it from the end of the cigar. In terms of body, there seems to be a little bit of progression. It's still fairly mild to medium maybe. And the finish, just like Tom had mentioned earlier, suddenly changed and got very creamy on me. And it's been very pleasant ever since. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. Burn-wise, as you can see, it's perfect, really. I mean, it's a little wavy, but not even flawed, in my opinion. The ash did fall off on my laptop this time instead of my lap, but that was my fault for not paying attention. But in the flavor department, I'm sure you can tell here, but I'm a little bit ahead of Walt, so that probably explains why I got hit with the creamy sensation before he did. As far as flavors, it's not really a lot has changed in my opinion, other than that it was a sudden creamy type of thing going on that was pretty sudden, and it seems to have stayed. But I almost want to say there's like a buttery taste to it, like a buttery toasty kind of taste. I don't know if I can really get anything more out of this cigar. I'm really trying here. How about you, Walt? Can you bail me out again?
You know, I'm getting that same sort of like a buttered toast sort of flavor, and more so the sort of buttery texture. I'm getting a little bit of bitterness out of the cigar. I'm not quite sure how I would explain that bitterness, but because of how free the draw is, I think the cigar might be warming up a little bit too much, and as a result, it's getting a little bitter. It's not unappealing or anything. You know, it's not like dragging the enjoyment down out of the cigar. It's just I don't know. It's a slight negative influence to an otherwise very positive cigar experience, or positive smoking experience.
You know, I'm not really noticing that, but that could be because I'm not really really don't have that advanced of a palate. But let me see if I can pick that up. You know, maybe if I dig deep, I can see what you're talking about there. But by no means. I mean, honestly I can't think of anything bad to say about it. I'd probably like it with a cup of coffee or something. I'm just doing the water thing, but I think coffee would probably complement the cigar nicely.
Yeah, I'm pairing mine up with coffee actually, and it's going very well. I mean, you know, we're getting fairly late into the afternoon. It's almost 5 o'clock, so it's not, you know, my palate isn't what it would be early in the morning with a cup of coffee, but you know, it seems like everything's going very well, and I would really expect this cigar to perform pretty good in the morning and not be overwhelming.
Exactly. You know, and I honestly cannot pull another flavor out of this thing. I've honestly picked it apart as much as I'm capable of.
I think this has been very straightforward and fairly simple. I mean, you know, there really isn't anything bad I can say about it. It's doing pretty well.
Yeah, we're probably going to start sounding redundant here. If you can, unless you can't add anything else, I know I can't. But before we bore the people to tears, we could head on to the last third.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool. As always, we will return. Third, and as usual, I believe I'm ahead of Walt, as you can see from the size here. But the burn was again perfect. Physically, the cigar was perfect. The thing just billowed out smoke, and really filled up the little room I'm in here. I made a cheat sheet of what I thought I was getting in the flavor department, because really not a whole lot changed, and I was really struggling to find something new, basically. And I want to say the creamy taste remained, or not taste, but like sensation. It was a little toasty and buttery, and I want to say way in the back I was getting a slight nutty flavor, but you know, I'm really stretching to say I pulled that flavor out of it. So, Walt, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, I think I'm at about the 1.5 inch mark. I broke out the toothpick because the cigar seems to be getting a little warm on the fingers. The draw is pretty free. There's not a whole lot of resistance to it, and as a result, you know, I get a lot of heat traveling through the cigar, and it's getting a little warm. It's turning a little harsh, getting a little bitter. But you know, I've got to say, you know, there isn't a whole lot to go into with this particular cigar. It seemed very simple. The flavor profile remained consistent for the most part. I mean, I've got a woody flavor. I'm getting a little bit of a nutty flavor. It's got a mild creamy sensation to it. It lingers a little bit on the palate. It's easy on the palate. It doesn't seem aggressive, especially through the sinuses. When I do retrohale the smoke, I'm still getting a little bit of a spiciness to it, more like a spicy flavor and not just a tingling sensation. So there's definitely a flavor or a taste associated with that spiciness. You know, I don't know. I think that this was a decent cigar overall. It was fairly mild. It was enjoyable. It was very consistent front to back, which some people may view that as, you know, being a little too one-dimensional for their particular taste. But, you know, I think this would go pretty well with a cup of coffee, you know, late morning, and it would stand up pretty well. What do you think, Tom?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I switched over to coffee, Dunkin' Donuts coffee to be exact, during the last third, and it did go well. Obviously, it gave it kind of a coffee-ish flavor, but you know, and I couldn't really tell if that was the cigar or the coffee. But either way, I mean, who cares? It tasted good, and you know, the harshness, I'm really not getting any of that. So I don't know, you know, what's up with that difference of experience we're having. But and I didn't mention I guess you'd call it a spicy flavor in the nose. I forgot that altogether. I didn't even write it on my cheat sheet. So I'm glad you brought that up. I did miss something. And I guess there was a slight woody flavor too, but again, one-dimensional. A lot of it kind of screamed, you know, it's another Connecticut wrap cigar, but it was good. I'm really struggling to fault it or say something bad about it, but I can't at this point.
You know, one of the common questions that comes up with this type of cigars, you know, a lot of people want to know, well, what is it compared to? And you know, not to put you on the spot, but what do you think this would compare to that you smoke on a regular basis, or maybe even on the occasional basis?
You really threw me under the bus there, buddy. No, just kidding. Well, you know, whenever I smoke like a typical, what I would consider like a typical Connecticut tasting cigar, I kind of always refer to the Rocky Patel Connecticut. And I haven't had one in so long, I don't even, you know, I couldn't tell you the flavor profile of it, but that to me is sort of like my typical Connecticut cigar. So I don't know if I can say it's like that, but I mean, that's really all I can think of in my mind that I consider typical.
You know, it's been a while since I had a Rocky Patel Connecticut too, and I think it's got a Honduran filler, so I can imagine the two cigars being similar or sharing sort of a similar characteristic. But you know, it's been so long since I've had one, and I'm finding it tough to sort of compare the two. I did have a vintage '99 not terribly long ago, and I think that was more creamy and a little easier or a little smoother than this cigar. Not that this is really rough or anything, but that vintage '99 seemed a little more refined.
I totally agree with that. I think I reviewed a vintage in December of '08. That was like my first video review without Ed or whatever, and it was good. It was better than this in my opinion, but not to fault this cigar, of course. I mean, they are different, but they are similar. I'm kind of looking through my archives here to see if I can find an accurate comparison, you know, something I can say, yes, it reminds me of this. But I keep on going back to the Rocky Connecticut. For some reason, I keep going back to that in my mind.
You know, one of the things that you pointed out earlier, which I failed to realize in my last review, was that the MSRP is over $6 on this particular cigar, and that really throws out the whole value system I had in my mind. looking at that Maduro as a $3 cigar, I thought it was a good value. But looking at this cigar, even though it was smooth and it was consistent and it burned fantastically, I don't know that I could comfortably say this was a very good value for $6.05 or whatever it is. What do you typically spend on a cigar that is traditionally mild to medium, and how do you think this compares as far as the value is concerned?
Considering it's a Robusto size, it's, we've been smoking for 70 minutes around there. $6 may be a little steep for me, just because of the lack of wow factor. I can't think of what the Connecticut's cost, but I want to say they're around that price. I could very well be wrong. But yeah, it's a little pricey for my taste for what you get, I guess I would say. But, if it was a $3 cigar, I'd be pretty enthusiastic about it.
I don't know if it's just me, but a lot of times, for whatever reason, I always associate a mild cigar with being inexpensive. I don't know whether in my mind I'm comparing, dollars to flavor, and, the flavors, or the dollars are always losing out. For whatever reason, I just think, this cigar should be inexpensive because it's mild. But, that's always not the case, or it's not always the case. Do you find that sometimes you do that, you associate a mild cigar with being inexpensive?
I do, but, that kind of brought a thought to my mind that I kind of have a benchmark Connecticut wrap cigar, which is what I consider a flavorful, mild Connecticut cigar, but somehow it's mild, but somehow has a lot of flavor, if that makes sense. And it's the Perlera Younga Cuban grade Connecticut shaped wrapper. And that thing is very mild, and it's pretty. I don't even know if they make it anymore, but it was pretty cheap. It was like $5 to $6 a stick, and it was full of flavor. I mean, it wasn't a wow cigar, but it was surprising. Basically, you were like, hey, this is a lot of flavor for a quote mild cigar. So that's kind of my benchmark, I guess you'd say, as far as high-end mild. Yeah, I'm kind of looking for them, actually.
Well, just all in all, I think this was a decent cigar. It may be a little overpriced at $6, but it was smooth, consistent, and enjoyable. I definitely preferred this one over the Maduro. I think it's safe to say that the general consensus is that this is a decent cigar.
If I were to run across it, I wouldn't discourage you from trying it. I mean, it's pretty good. And I guess the skinny on it is it's a tribute to Raymond D. Roth, and I guess Camacho blended this for H.J. Bailey exclusively. So I don't know if you can only get them from H.J. Bailey or if like they sell them on at retail stores. I'm not quite sure how that works. But yeah, I say give it a try. It's pretty good.
Well, I'm completely tapped out for things to say about the Don Ramon Natural. So unless you have anything to add, Tom, I think we can wrap this one up.
I think we've covered everything about this cigar. So yeah, it was cool being a guest here on Stogie Review as always, and that's about all I got. Walt, it was cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was a great time. We definitely have to do this again. All right, well, that's Tom and my take on the Don Ramon Natural. So until next week, happy smoking.